Hello, everyone. This is Linda Caranzelis. I am a board-certified cognitive specialist, former special ed teacher, and I'm here today to talk about a nonverbal learning disorders. I also have a nonverbal learning disorder and ADHD. So this is a topic that I am very passionate about. It's my mission in life for others not to suffer the way that I did. Because back in the day, nobody really knew much about nonverbal learning disorders at all. And even today, we are starting to find out more and more about them in this day a little bit more rapidly than what we have known from before. I'm going to talk about something called Deseemia. Not many people have heard about that. We all know that a nonverbal learning disorder, and let me back up a little bit. There's a lot of topics we can talk about with a nonverbal learning disorder, but we're going to talk about nonverbal learning disorder with pertaining to social skills. I mean, there's other aspects of it, but for today, I'm going to talk about social skills a little bit. But usually when we hear about a nonverbal learning disorder, we hear about how those adults and children do not pick up on nonverbal cues, which is absolutely 100% correct. Most of communication is nonverbal. We don't know the exact percentage, about 80%, and 20% is verbal. So those with nonverbal learning disorder are not picking up all the nonverbal communication, eye contact, facial expression, body language, gestures, tone of voice. And so we do know that. And they're not picking up on those things I just mentioned, but they are picking up on the verbal meaning only. So they're very, very literal. So exactly what they hear is exactly how they perceive it. They're not reading between the lines. But we don't really hear about this part of it, which is Deseemia, is that's a difficulty. It's basically a nonverbal learning disorder, but it basically states that if you are Deseemia, there's been some research on it, that you are unable to connect your behavior to the reaction of others. So that means that one with NVLD is not going to know the impact of their behavior on other people, how they're coming across and how that person perceives them. Are they friendly? Do they want to get to know them more? I mean, we all size up somebody right away. But they're not making the connection, and they can make the same mistakes over and over and over again and not ever make that connection. But what they do know is that for some reason they're turning people off. They just don't know why. And that's really the highlight of when you say someone has Deseemia or they're dysemic, not really making that connection. Other people can get angry with them, and they may know that other people obviously get angry with them because, you know, if you're raising your voice, or, you know, anger is usually something, if it's strongly, they can pick up on, but more subtle, perhaps no. Everybody with NVLD presents in a different way. There is no one way where everybody hits every single symptom. Some people have different symptoms than others. Like, it's not a cookie cutter diagnosis is what I'm trying to say. So what are the causes of a nonverbal learning disorder of being dysemic is that there is a connection between the right and the left hemisphere of the brain. The neural connections are not being made. There are these thick, heavy fibers that communicate from the left and right hemisphere that allow us to decipher and understand other people's nonverbal processing. And that's where the problem is. It's a neurological difficulty in processing nonverbal communication. So this is located in the corpus callosum of the brain, where these fibers connect the right and the left hemispheres. There have been studies that those with nonverbal learning disorders have smaller spleniums than those with other learning disabilities, or those with no learning disabilities, and even more important, those that are high-functioning autism or ADHD. So even though they may experience some similar symptoms and there is overlap, the causes are very different according to this research. So they're different neural pathways. So the study indicated that children, and the study was with children, and they interpreted what other interactions, I think it was giving a birthday present, the two different groups of kids, those that had nonverbal and those that did not, the ones that had the smaller spleniums, which are nonverbal learning disordered subjects in this, which were children, they completely misinterpreted what others did not. So that is the science behind it, and there more and more studies are being done right now to explain NVLD, and a lot more people are starting to understand how this is different from autism and being on the spectrum, which I can get into that on another video. So we do know that their brains respond differently. And so there's a lot of social difficulties, feeling left out, isolation, being rejected. You know, we are social beings, and this is devastating. If we can't communicate with others, interpret what they're saying, and portray what we want to say to them non-verbally, we are at a great disadvantage. It's, you know, job problems with being on the job as an employee, problems in school, making friends, problems with teachers. A lot of kids with NVLD, because they're very blunt and literal, they may come across as challenging the teacher and say, you didn't say this, you said that. We're correcting the teacher, saying, no, this is what this means or that means. And then they get labeled as a behavior problem, but they're not really a behavior problem. They're just trying to understand what's going on. So, you know, it's like being in a foreign country and not being able to navigate your way around, which I talked about in my previous video. It is absolutely devastating. And what's so devastating about it is that you definitely are misperceived. You may come across as angry and you may not even know it. Others may think you're angry. You're not displaying the emotions that you want to, and you're not even aware of that. So research says that we are social beings. We need to be connected. Those of us that have friendships that make social connections are far more happier and fulfilled in life. We are not meant to be isolated. Unfortunately, those with NVLD are often isolated, ostracized, bullied at school, in the workplace, because it's invisible. And people may think they just want a break or they're being a victim. And nothing could be further from the truth. You know, people can be really, really mean. So the friendships that they usually make are short-lived. This isn't based on research. This is me working with people with NVLD for over the past 25 years. Usually in the beginning, everything is fine, you know, because we mask NVLD. We know how to make eye contact. We know the appropriate greetings and the smiles. And so you kind of are passing as, I hate to say normal, but you're passing, you're masking. And you're putting this mask on because you want to be accepted, you want to be liked like everybody else, and you want to have friends. But after you get to know the person, they start to see different things. You know, when you see someone in passing, like, you know, those with NVLD can have a lot of acquaintances because they don't see those people frequently. They're not interacting on a deeper level, either professionally or personally on a more intimate level. But when you see somebody day in and day out, or very, very frequently, you begin to notice these differences of how they can be blunt. You may have a lot of disagreements because they misinterpret what you say. And so the friendships can be short-lived, 3 to 6 months, depending on how frequent that you see the person. And what often winds up happening with kids as they get into adolescence, and especially adults, is they just kind of give up because it's so painful that why would anybody subject themselves to something that they can't fix, that they're not able to change about themselves? So they just wind up isolating and not bothering anymore. And they so want to have friendships and be included, but it's just not happening. They're just not getting it. They just don't get what's going on around them. So, you know, so it's often equated to what I call being found out. And a lot of people will say to me, you know, they found out, you know, I was found out, I was had. Because, you know, you can only put on that mask for so long. And then situations occur where you do misunderstand people and you can kind of piss them off. People get angry, for lack of a better word, when you may be coming across as rude or blunt, or they may be saying the same thing over and over, trying to explain something to you and you're not getting it. And that, has happened to me in the past. I've, learned how to deal with this over the years, but you're not really understanding and you keep asking over and over. And then the person finally just gets frustrated. I already told you that, but you're not getting it. You still need to have some more explanation. And that can be due to other processing problems. Usually when you have one processing problem, because NVLD is poor processing of nonverbal communication, you have other processing problems. So it's not uncommon to have, auditory processing problems. You definitely have visual processing and spatial problems. That's part of the criteria to be diagnosed with NVLD. Let me give you some examples. I had a lot of feedback from my other video that people definitely related to this. And some of these examples are lack of personal body space, because visual spatial, knowing where your body is in space and judging things, is something that's affected by the brain and the neurological wiring from the communication between the right and left hemisphere. So I'm not a guy, obviously, but guys know that when they go to the bathroom and they go to a urinal, that if there's a whole bunch of them open, they're not going to go right and stand next to the person that's using one. That's invading somebody's body space. So think about kids in school. They may do that and not even know. And so other people are just going to kind of be like, whoa, after maybe that happens once or twice, and then some other things happen. It's a combination and accumulation of things, then they start to be rejected. May not know that, you don't always have to be first in line. Many kids will rush to the front of the line. These are unwritten social communication rules that we are supposed to know, that we learn from observation if we have intact processing skills. We know that if you go to the beach and there's this wide open space, you don't go sit next to the person or family that is closest to you and camp out right next to them. That's another example of proximity and body space, and visual spatial orientation. So I'm sure you've all known people that you talk to and they are right in front of your face, and you back up and then they move in. They back up, you move in. You back up, they move in, and they're just not picking up on that nonverbal cue that you feel uncomfortable, that you need that space, and that it's usually an arm length space away that we need between people. And this isn't just to kids, this is to adults too. So those with NVLD will keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again and not learning from them, which points out to the next thing that, one more example I wanted to give you was when you go to a movie theater. Again, if there's, nobody in there, and there's like 5 people and there's all these open spaces, they won't know that you don't go sit right next to somebody. Another thing they can do is kind of latch on to somebody because they don't understand what's going on around them. So they look to people to help them. And they don't realize that maybe they're asking too many questions, or they're being annoying, or they're contacting them too much. Or kids may not know that, I can't always play the same game I want to play. And when they're with other kids, they're going to get tired of it. They don't realize that there's this turn taking and there's this reciprocal give and take, that they can't always do what they want to do. But again, they won't know it. And most people are never going to tell you these things because it's considered rude and it's uncomfortable and awkward for somebody to bring that to your attention. Think about it. Would you want to correct someone? Or it's just easier to, walk away and just don't deal with them. You just move on to someone else that you feel more comfortable with. And that's what happens. So people with NVLD just keep doing these same things over and over until they get some kind of intervention and they get some kind of help. And that's exactly what I do. I help people, and you can go to my website, addvantageslearningcenter.com. That's the word advantages with 2 D's. And you can see what I do, because I don't do this in the traditional way that other people do, because I have NVLD and I also am a learning specialist. I had myself had gone to many, many people over the years before I, got into helping people and getting the credentials, that did not help because therapy did not help. And so you can get the wrong kind of help, which what my other video was about, which just makes everything worse, because then you're not making progress and you're feeling even more bad about yourself, lowering self-esteem. So another couple situations I had when I was teaching was that, and I left teaching and I had tenure just for this fact, because I felt very limited in the schools, because you really can't help the kids. You're only allowed to do certain things. And, those are academic. Usually kids that have these social problems, a little bit starting to be more known now. There's social skills groups and whatnot. But for the most part, I couldn't do anything progressive or science-based or, any kind of brain training. And there's different kinds of brain training, which again is another topic I can get into. But that's why I left. So if you're wondering why, that's why I left. So I had a student where was misbehaving one day, was really disrupting the class. And I told him to go to the office. And I said that Mr. Smith was in the office and that he was going to, talk to him, and, you're going to have to go down there and see Mr. Smith. And another student that was not misbehaving, that had a nonverbal learning disorder, and this was in 8th grade, where you would kind of read between the lines and pick up on this, said, why does Johnny have to go see Mr. Smith at the office? Because he is the language arts teacher. Now, this child wasn't reading between the lines that basically what I was saying, and I did kind of say it literally, that, you're going to go see him because that's who's there. But he just couldn't translate from the concreteness and the literalness of it that, that even though he's a language arts teacher, he was in charge for the day. Okay. I had another girl that was at the office dropping off a note that I had sent her, and she saw the secretary get on the intercom and make an announcement. But this girl didn't know boundaries. So she got on the intercom and wished her friend a happy birthday, which, is not something that kids are supposed to do without permission, but she didn't have any boundaries because she didn't know that that wasn't okay. So again, this can look like a misbehavior oppositional problem in children and adults. But it's simply not knowing these unwritten rules that we don't do something like that unless we have permission or we ask. Another thing, especially with adults, that you'll see is if you say, how are you? That we don't really mean that literally, but some without NVLD will take that literally, and they'll tell you, well, maybe my car broke, I don't have the money to fix it. I'm dizzy, I don't feel well. They'll tell you all about their health problems. They don't get that it's just a social part of communication where you say, I'm doing well, fine, thank you, and how are you? And all of these things are going to push other people away, and the devastation, isolation, bullying, ostracization is absolutely devastating and can lead to very high anxiety and depression, and some not even wanting to live because they can't pierce this veil of getting into the world as an outsider looking in and seeing everybody else going out with friends, moving along in life, getting married, holding down jobs, going to college, because it's not just social, it's academic, it's these processing skills that affect all areas of life. But today I was just kind of honing in on the social. So absolutely devastating. And without the right intervention, you know, the prognosis is pretty grim. And but the good news is that it's not doom and gloom if you get the right kind of help. There are things that you can do to improve your processing, because normally when you have one processing problem, you have other ones. And so that's what you can go to my webpage and you can look all that up and see how I can help you. Or you can call me and I'll give you my number at the end of this. So I gave you some examples. I believe I told you the latching on example, but I did not tell you this one. Being easily led by people taking advantage, not knowing that other people have an agenda. So I had someone that wound up spending money and buying all this stuff from somebody that was selling products from multi-level marketing, and thinking that this person wanted to be their friend, you know, buying all these products and even signing up to sell the stuff and spending like a lot of money, like over $1,000, and thinking that this person wanted to be their friend. Because, you know, when you're in multi-level marketing, sometimes they train you or you go to meetings. And after spending the money and not really being successful selling anything, there was no friendship. So that can be very devastating to someone. So learning how to read nonverbal cues and improving your cognitive processing is essential for a life of experiencing success. So beyond social skills, I'll mention briefly, there's academic problems. There's, you know, a lot of people that are in college for like 5 or 6 years, they can't graduate, or they are on probation. There's visual-spatial problems, very clumsy, bumping into things, usually, well, mostly all the time, very, very verbal, very well-spoken, because verbal language is their way of getting around and understanding things. It's like my eyeglasses. Without the words, they literally can't do anything. They need you to give them the words and explain everything. That's why those with nonverbal learning disorders love, love, love to know the rules. Give me the rules, tell me what they are, and I'll follow them. They gravitate towards people that are blunt. And once you tell them the rules, they can pretty much go and run with them, because they weren't able to make that connection before, some of the basic social skills rules. But what you really need to do is to change your cognitive processing, and it's a brain-based neurological disorder. And you can change the way you process incoming informations. It's not tutoring, it's not strategies, because, you know, strategies like using a planner or using a timer, they're not really going to change anything. You can use them, but they're not foolproof. And there really is no cure. So if anybody tells you that, run away. But there are definitely things that you can do for cognitive processing that change the way the pathways in your brain, and to create new pathways in the brain, because we know the brain has neuroplasticity. So it's not all doom and gloom. I can go into what that is on another video. But right now, you know, I just want you to know that you may be feeling hopeless. You may have tried many things. You may have spent a lot of money. You may have high college loans. You may be having trouble on the job. Your child may be miserable, not have any friends. That there is hope and there is help, and that you just have to find the right kind of help. I can help you. My number is 856-745-2141. You can give me a call. You can go to my website, which is www.addvantageslearningcenter.com. Be sure to put 2 D's in there, like addVantages, because there are advantages to everything in life. There's pros and cons. Mostly those with nonverbal learning disorder are very kind and loyal, and would make it the best friend ever, because that's just part of their personality. And they always want to help people and are for the underdog, because they have had those same feelings themselves and have needed help. So it's www.addvantageslearningcenter.com with 2 D's. 856-745-2141 is my number. You can call me. You can subscribe here on YouTube because I'm going to be doing more videos. I'll let you know if you sign up for my email when you go to my website, the days and times. But you can sign up for YouTube to be subscribed to this channel, and make sure you click the little bell icon because you'll get notifications when the new videos come out. So I hope that I've given you some hope. I hope that I've given you some hope. I'm sorry. And that I look forward to hearing from you and getting your feedback. A lot of you have been giving me really good feedback from the few videos that I have done, and I appreciate hearing from you and how that has helped you. Bye for now.